I have a permanent position in the archives world, but I'm miserable at my workplace. I feel guilty since permanent full time work is so hard to come by, but it's been hurting my mental health for years. Is it irresponsible to leave for a temporary archives position at another institution? How do you balance mental health and job security in the library and information science world? And first of all, I'm really sorry to hear it. You are not alone in that, which isn't comforting, but I guess just know you're not alone. So, I do want to talk about a couple of things here. First of all, is gratitude and grief. It is possible to feel both at the same time. So, you can be grateful for your job and yet still feel the profound grief of being unhappy, um, being mistreated, um, all of the things that might be contributing to your unhappiness in your particular position. So it's possible to have both. It does not mean you should or have to stay there, though. And that there is a grief around that. When I was in my last position, I think part of the reason why it took so long to leave was the grief, the anticipatory grief I was feeling of leaving a position that, for many reasons, was a dream, and yet still feeling miserable. And then also the grief of, if I leave this position, will I ever be in the archives or museum world again? Jobs are hard to get, as everybody knows. And so grief from that too, of if I voluntarily give up this job, will I still be just as miserable and not be able to find a job after that? Which gets me into my next point, which is the concept of golden handcuffs. And this particular phrase I hear a lot, especially in academia. And the idea is that you are in a position where it is so prestigious, it is so exciting or highly valued externally. Um, it's people think what you do is so cool. You're so lucky to have that job. It's so hard to find another job if you wanted or needed to. All of those things are on the surface level seemingly very good things that you can't or shouldn't leave. And because of that dynamic, it is handcuffing you to what is an awful situation because you supposedly have this amazing job. Then there's the mental health versus the job security aspect of this. Mental health, it's amazing how much can impact it and how resilient we can be and how much we can endure. Um, but how much our mental health can then impact physical health and everything else if we aren't able to take care of ourselves in that way. And that is becoming increasingly an issue for so many of us in the field as we butt up against the issue of job security. So the field doesn't have enough jobs seemingly for everybody. I would actually phrase that as the field doesn't have enough money to fund all of the jobs it should be funding, because then we would have plenty of jobs. There's certainly enough to do, right? And or they are not paying what they should be paying for people of the education and experience and responsibilities that so many of us have. So you're really trying to balance these two very critical aspects that impact your life in so many ways, mental health included. So how do you even navigate that? And there's not a good or straight answer, but I think realizing what a tough spot you're in, because the first thing we do tend to think about is the job security issue or the job scarcity issue. But what we also need to be critically aware of is where our mental health is at, because for so many of us, in my case, it impacted my physical health irrevocably. So that is not worth it and has become such a longer term problem than the short term problem of job security. And also, what is really irresponsible here? So I want to sort of challenge you on the the idea that it would be irresponsible to leave your job, which I agree on the surface level. And if you were asking my parents, maybe it would seem irresponsible to quit a job because you're unhappy to hopefully find something else, but knowing the job market's not great. It on the surface definitely seems irresponsible. However, would it not also be irresponsible to keep yourself in a position in which you are miserable and that is impacting your health? So think about that. While you're in there, though, and I realize this is a slow process, you can't just extract yourself miraculously from this bad situation. What is within your control? So start insulating yourself, start setting up boundaries, start deciding what it is you will put up with or not, and trying to really insulate yourself from as much as you can that is awful there. Um, Whether that's staying away from certain people, whether that is not doing certain jobs or committees. And I realize not all of this is within your control, but as best as possible, try and start insulating yourself and controlling what you can. And what boundaries can you build? So if it's with your boss, this is obviously very hard and intricate, but figuring out what allies you have there, whether in a formal structure or informally, what classes can you take to help build up yourself as a person and professional, invest in yourself? What ways can you work with your boss that limits some of the awful behavior, for example, or if it's coworkers, same thing, and just figure out where it is that you can put in some boundaries. And just a reminder that just because it is your job to work there, it is not your job to put up with bullshit. So, calling people on it and building boundaries, while initially is intimidating, it is also very thrilling and ultimately better for you and probably many of your coworkers. So, I encourage you while you are in that situation to start experimenting with protecting and insulating yourself and making sure that you're creating the work situation that you can tolerate and survive. Be damned the consequences.